Hello friends and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to work on MJ's messenger bag from ByAnnie, and we're going to work on, we've already made all the strapping and the padded handle. The next thing we're going to do is work on all the pockets and the padded divider for the middle of the bag, which is the protector for your tablet or your laptop. So let's get started and get all that done today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to work on is on page 5, section 3. We're going to work on pocket A, and that is this quilted piece right here. This is going to be the outside of my bag. That's going to be on the inside of the pocket. The first thing we need to do is grab our pocket border. So this eventually is going to be on here like this. And we need to grab the interfacing that we cut for the border. So when you attach this interfacing, you want it to be 1/4 inch from either side, so you have a little fabric hanging off where there's no interfacing. So I've already marked the 1/4 inch with my marking tool. And don't forget, when you put on interfacing, that the rough side or the bumpy side is the glue side. So the rough side is the glue side, and that is the side that goes down onto your fabric. If you feel this right here, make sure it's smooth like cotton fabric. If you turn it over and you feel it and it's bumpy and rough, don't iron on that side, because your iron will be a mess and you will have to clean your iron and it's not going to be fun. So again, the bumpy side or the rough side is the glue side. So make sure you put that down, and we're going to fuse that to our fabric here. Just going to make sure it's all lined up first. And it would help if my iron was ready to go, but it wasn't. So I'm just going to check again while I'm waiting for the iron. Take your time with this. You want it to be correct. Okay. And my iron's nice and warm now. You're going to want to hold it on those spots for a little bit. Okay, that's all fused and looking good. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get our outside pocket piece. And if you have directional fabric like I do, make sure you pay attention to the direction when you draw this line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line on this piece. Take that tab off. And if you're making the smaller bag, you're going to draw a line 2.5 inches down from the top. If you're making the larger size, which is what I'm making, it's 3 inches. So I'm going to measure down. Let me see if I've got, I don't think I have a longer ruler over here. No. All right, so I'm going to measure 3 inches down. And then I'm going to draw a line. Grab my marker here. And then I'm going to move my ruler because I don't have one long enough right over here to draw all the way across. Line it up good. Okay, so that's going to be our line from where we're going to line up this border piece. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple wonder clips. I'm going to put this right underneath that line. You can still see the line just a little bit. And I'm going to clip it on either side just to hold it in place. And then we're going to sew this 1/4 inch down. So making sure that it's lined up with that line, just under it. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch down. You can pin this if you want to. I'm just kind of adjusting as I go here. If you want to draw a 1/4 inch line, if that makes you feel better, you can do that as well. Okay, now if I did this correctly, once I flip it up, yeah, you want to sew that right sides together. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. There's a string right there. Let me get that off. Okay. This piece should touch the top of your bag. So we're going to sort of finger press this, make sure it's laying where it's supposed to. And then we're going to iron this over. Get these things out of the way. And give that a good press so it's going where you want it to. Okay. Now, after you have that pressed over, we're going to stitch, just go like a couple stitches off of this piece and then stitch all the way around 1/8 of an inch just to tack it down. Because the next step after this is we're going to install the zipper for this pocket. So we want to have this nice and tacked down before we do that. If you have a needle down on your machine, now would be a good time to use it so you can turn those corners and not cut your thread. This is just going to hold everything together really nicely. Okay, there we go. All right, so you should have a piece that looks something like this. This is my directional is going in the right direction because that's the part that's going to be on the bottom of the pocket and show this is the top of the pocket. And now I'm going to go grab my zipper and we're going to install the zipper on this piece. Okay, I've got this piece ready to go with my zipper. Now the zipper, if you're doing the larger size, should be I believe 14 inches, 16 inches, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and line my zipper. So this is the top of the zipper that's going to be on the outside of the bag. We're going to flip that over and we're going to install it upside down. And right now I do not have a zipper pull on this. If you're using zipper by the yard, that's what you'll have, and we'll install the zipper pull after we put the zipper on here. I'm just going to clip this in a couple places to keep it in place. Yep. And then, perfect. And then we're going to just stitch right on that zipper all along. I'm trying to read the instructions and see if they want us attach the zipper to the strip, sewing a 1/4 inch from the edge. Okay, sometimes it says get as close to the zipper as you can. Sometimes it wants it on the edge, so that's what I was reading. So a 1/4 inch in from this top edge, they want us to sew this zipper on. Pretty much everything with ByAnnie is a 1/4 inch, but every once in a while you'll find something that's a little different. So, all right, I'm gonna back stitch to hold the zipper in place. Then I'll just pull the clips out as I go here. And I'm using a regular straight stitch foot, and it's far enough away from the zipper that it's not hitting it, so no problem. If you don't have a narrow straight stitch foot, you can use your zipper foot. Most machines come with them. If you've never used one, now would be a great time to try it. They're a nice little tool if you've got like a wider straight stitch foot, because some of you do. It might hit the zipper teeth, so you might want to try your zipper foot. My machine is a straight stitch only machine, so it comes with the narrow straight stitch foot. It works for most things. I don't usually have to change the feet. Okay, so from here we're gonna finger press this and get this zipper tape to flip over. You can press it with an iron if you want to, but if you do, be very careful because this is nylon and the zippers, and they can melt. So just don't use a light iron, like a cooler iron. Sometimes I will if I can't get it to flip. And the next thing we're gonna do is, after you get that kind of finger pressed, we're gonna go back with this under the machine and go right on the fabric and do a top stitch to hold this all down and in place and give it a nice kind of finish. So you want the fabric on the left hand side. I'm going to increase my stitch length a little bit to do like a top finish stitch. Just do a back stitch to hold it right there on the edge. That's going to get enclosed in the seam anyway. And I'm going to kind of go a little slower than I normally sew to make sure that this is good and pressed over. Because until you stitch it down, it does want to flip back. And we're far enough away from that zipper, the zipper teeth, that you can use a regular foot on this part as well. And then a back stitch at the other end as well. Okay, that looks good. We have a nice finished edge right here, so that's good. It's holding that zipper tape down here. And then the next step is we have to bind the other side of the zipper. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our 2" by 14.5" long binding piece. Hopefully you have it tagged from the beginning when we cut all these pieces. I already grabbed mine and I ironed it in half. That's all you need to do, is press it in half. And then let me read the pattern because I don't remember. I think we bind it from the back and then flip it forward and then top stitch, so the top stitch sort of matches. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with the binding on this back side, and I'm going to clip this so it stays where I want it because the binding is pretty much just long enough, and I only need to hold it in a couple spots. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch in and then flip it over and top stitch it on the other side. So let's do that. I'm also going to back stitch this at the front and the back just to hold it in place. Again, we're far enough away from the zipper teeth that it's not a problem to use your straight stitch foot. Okay, we've got that attached on that side. I'm going to finger press this I might even press it with the iron. Actually, I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I pressed this over and I clipped it on with some binding clips, and I'm going to go ahead and top stitch that down so it'll have a nice finish just like this side. Now you're going to be close to your zipper tape here, so you might want your zipper foot if you don't have a narrow straight stitch foot. I'm going to go slow so it goes through nicely. All right, there we go. So that's top stitch. This is top stitch. Everything looks amazing. And put the binding clips back over here. And the next thing we need to do after this piece, set this piece aside. I'm going to put on the zipper. Actually, I could just do that right now. I have the zipper pull right here. I'm going to put on the zipper pull. And then we're going to, actually I'll do this later so I can do that off camera because you guys don't need to worry about that. We're going to go to piece B, which is step B. And we're going to basically do the same thing that we did to this one. It's not going to get a border piece and it's not going to get a zipper, but we're going to bind it. So I've got that other piece right here. We're going to bind the top of this just like we bound that one. So I'm going to attach it to the back, which is the flowery fabric for me, and flip it over and bind it here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, come back, and we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so I've got my piece B bound. So that's the back pocket of the bag. And then I've got the piece with the zipper all bound, and I put the zipper on. So that's done and ready to go. The next thing we need to do is we need to do the pockets C and D, which are the little pockets on the side of the bag underneath where the strap clips on. There's a couple cute little side pockets. And we're basically going to make them the same way that we did this front pocket. We're going to take this fabric and put the fusible on it, stitch or draw a line, stitch it right sides together, flip it up, and then bind it. So I already did one of them. There's two. So we'll do this one together. I drew the line on my piece already. It's 2.5 inches down from the top. And again, I have directional fabric, so I'm being really careful to make sure I draw the lines on the correct part. And just like the other piece, you want to make sure that this is about 1/4 inch away from either side. I'm just going to eyeball it this time rather than drawing the line. And don't forget that the bumpy side or the rough side is the glue side, and you want the glue side down on your fabric, not on your iron. Okay, that piece is ready to go. Just going to press it a little bit on this side too. Okay, that piece is ready to go. So I've already drawn my line, like I said, 2.5 inches down. So I'm going to lay that right up against my line, and then I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch. And then we're going to do the same as before and flip it up, press it in place, and then stitch it down around the edges, and then bind this. Pretty simple. These pockets are all kind of made the same way. Now, if you're top stitching and you're doing a top stitch that's sort of larger, like a quilting stitch, which is how I do my top stitch, I go to about a 2.5. Just remember when you start sewing your pieces parts together again to lower your stitch length back down. Okay, I'm gonna press that. And then I'm going to stitch around the top, or around the sides, the top and around that side. I'm just going to go a couple stitches beyond, and just about 1/8 of an inch. Believe me, this makes it a lot easier when you go to bind this, because everything will be held in place. Okay. All right. Perfect. Now we can bind this. So I'm going to bind it from the back first. Just the binding strips for this size, the C and D pockets. You just fold them in half, putting the raw edges towards the top, and we're going to stitch this on 1/4 inch, flip it over. Probably the quickest and easiest binding you're ever going to do. Because it's such a small piece. Give it a little finger press, but I'm also going to iron it and press it, make it go over. These little extra steps that I put in, like ironing things, you don't have to do all that. You can finger press if you want to. I actually think that's what the instructions say. I just like to make sure everything goes beautifully. We're putting all this work in the bag. I want it to come out as perfect as possible. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, but that's okay. Everybody's different. You don't have to be. And now I'm going to increase my stitch length so I can do that top stitch. I do back stitch at the beginning, at the end of these, just to hold the stitches in place. And you won't see those anyway because they're going to get caught up when we add these pockets to the bag in the seam allowance. And this time I didn't clip it because it's such a short piece. I'm just holding it in place. And that looks good. So there we go. We have our 2 side pockets. We have our front zipper pocket. And then we've got our back pocket piece. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to grab our mesh fabric, which is going to be the mesh pocket inside. I've got that fabric right here. And then we're going to bind this. So I'm going to go grab the binding fabric and I'll come back and we will work on this. Okay, so I have my mesh fabric and I have my binding. It's the strip already pressed in half. Mesh can be tricky because it's stretchy. So we need to be really careful. The best way to sew on mesh is to sew with the fabric on the bottom, so in your feed dog, so it doesn't pull on the mesh. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take the raw edges and put them towards the top because we're going to bind this mesh pocket, but I'm going to clip this and I'm going to put like an excess amount of clips on this, but just so this thing doesn't move because mesh is so stretchy. And then we're going to sew this kind of weird because we're going to sew with the binding on the bottom. It's going to feel weird to do that, but I promise it's going to come out okay. So, some clips. And mesh can stretch and play with your mind. So just line it up as best you can. The nice thing about this project is that they did give us, it even says in the pattern that this is a generous piece of mesh. It's more than we really need for this pocket, and they gave us that so if there is any problems or wonkiness, your pocket is still going to turn out okay. And I've only worked with mesh a few times, and I put it in my bag that I made, and it came out just fine. So we will be fine. All right. So, and I'm not kidding that I'm putting probably more clips than I need, but you know, mesh, it moves a lot. And you can pin if you want to. I'm not a pinner. Don't want to bleed on my fabric. But I am going to put an obscene amount of clips on this. And that's all right. You don't have to, or you can. whatever you're most comfortable with. All right. So now I'm going to start from this end, and like I said, it's going to seem really weird because we're attaching this binding to the back, but we're actually stitching through the mesh on the front because we don't want the mesh up against your feed dogs pulling, because it's going to pull it and make it even wonkier. So I'm going to turn my stitch length down a little bit on this one, and I'm definitely going to back stitch, and I'm going to go kind of slow. I'm not going to go Stephanie speed on this one. Because I don't want this mesh going all over the place. I'm going to kind of hold it with my fingers and leave those clips in place until I get to the point where I can't have it on there anymore and pull them off. And adjust your mesh as you go. You can stop and start, it's fine. Mesh is a tricky little fabric, but because of the big holes on the mesh, you want to have a smaller stitch length so it can catch. You don't want to have giant stitches and then your mesh has potential to pull out of the stitches. It's looking beautiful so far. All right, that's stitched up really nicely. It stayed in place. I love it. All right, now we're gonna press this to the other side, and I'm gonna give this a quick, whoop, drop my wool mat. I'm gonna give this a quick press with the iron. Don't stay on the mesh too long because you could melt it a little bit. Only gonna stand it for a few seconds, but I want to get this pressed over. Okay. Now, I'm gonna pull this over to this side, and I'm gonna clip like crazy again, and then again we're gonna stitch from the wrong side. I know it sounds really, really weird, but I promise you it'll work. I'm going to put more clips on this side probably than I did on the other side. And I'm putting the flat side of the clips because the Wonder clips, if you use them, or the binding clips, they have one curved side and one flat side. I'm putting the flat side on this side because we're going to stitch from the wrong side, so that way the clips are flat against my machine base. Okay. I know this looks really crazy, but flip it over again to the wrong side, and we're going to stitch through the mesh and top stitch onto that flipped over piece. So I'm going to turn my stitch length up a little bit, not all the way toward like a regular top stitch, but a little bit. And I'm going to go slow for this. Some things I can't do Stephanie speed. It is a little easier to do this side than it was the first side because the mesh is already sewn in, so it's not shifting or moving anywhere, but still being super careful. And if you've worked with mesh a lot, let me know in the comments down below if you have any other tips or tricks for working with it. But that turned out really beautifully. I have a nice top stitch there. That's going to be the outside part of my pocket. That's the inside. I love it. It looks really good. Okay, so we've gotten all of our pockets done. We've gotten the inside mesh pocket, the two side pockets, the back pocket of the bag, and the front pocket of the bag with the zipper. So all of our pockets are done. We're going to put those aside. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the inner divider. So step E on page 6. So let's go there. Let's get all of our pieces, put all these away, and get all the pieces for our inner divider and work on that next. Okay, so what the next part says to do is to take our padding pieces, which is the soft and stable, place them on top of each other, aligning all the edges, and stitch them together using a 1/4 inch all the way around. So when I made my bag, I did that, of course, but I found that the soft and stable was slipping a little bit. So this time I'm going to try 505. I'm going to use this adhesive spray and stick these together a little bit. So I'm just going to spray a little bit on here. I think this might make it a little bit easier to keep the pieces together because they slipped a little bit for me. And then when I was stitching them, they were off a little bit. And I didn't really like that since I am OCD. So this time I'm going to try this trick and see if it works to stick these pieces together correctly. The nice thing about 505, if you don't stick something correctly, is that you can lift the piece right back up and stick it again. It's not a permanent adhesive, it's a temporary. Okay. That is stuck together. I'm just going to give it a little bit of quick press. And because it's stuck together, hopefully, when I stitch this around the edges now, it won't shift. Because I did wonder clips last time and stitched all the way, or clipped all the way around, and it still shifted a little bit. So I'm hoping this solves the problem. So fingers crossed. Let's stitch this up right now. Go down a little bit in my stitch length, and it says 1/8 of an inch. I think I'm going to go in even just a little bit more than 1/8, but not a 1/4, not even a scant, just a little bit more than 1/8. Yeah, this is much easier because these aren't shifting. So yeah, I'm glad I did that with the 505. So at that note, if you ever make this again, you might want to stick it together with some basting spray or even glue stick. Now this part, it does say you could use the stiletto to help push this through, but I'm just using my fingernail. Nearly there. Last side. Perfect. Okay, yeah, that worked a lot better, guys. Like, definitely use glue or 505. I'm happy to be the guinea pig for you guys. Okay, so let's see what the next step is. The next step is we are going to mark up lines on our contrasting fabric. That's the lining. This is the contrasting fabric. So Sarah wanted both to be the same color, so that's why I'm having to look at the tabs. I'm glad that they put these little marking tabs in there so I know what I was doing. Now, it looks like both of these are a little bit wrinkly, so I'm going to give this a quick press really quick before I draw anything on this. Probably just from being moved from my cutting table to over here to piles. I'm going to press this one as well. I had them folded at one point, so they got a little bit wrinkled. All right. All right, so this is our inner divider piece. And we need to mark lines on this guy. It says mark vertical lines from the top to the bottom of 1 3/4 inches in from the sides. So let's start with that one. There's a bunch of lines to be added to this, so we'll start with that one. So one of those on each side. And the lines are really important, so make sure you mark them. And then the next thing we need to do, let's see, position the marked inner divider on the soft and stable, aligning the bottom edges and allowing each side to extend beyond the soft and stable by 1 3/4 inches. Okay. So that's what the marks were for, so you know where to lay this. Okay. And it says there should be about 1/2 inch on the top up there. And to clip that in place. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. Okay, now it says with the right side down, position the inner divider lining, which is this other piece. Oh, take that tag off. Let's see, sorry. Position the lining, coordinating fabric on top of the inner divider, aligning the top and side edges and pin in place. It says the bottom edge of the lining will extend beyond the inner divider down here. Okay. Now, do we really need to pin this, or can we clip it? Maybe we can clip it. Really don't want to pull pins out. I do like pinning. If I have to, though, I will. Okay, sorry about the pause. I had to go check on my kiddos. So the next step is we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down this seam line. And we're going to sew on the lining fabric, and then the divider fabric, and then through the padding as well. So we're sewing on everything. Okay. Try to keep everything all lined up here. 1/4 inch seam allowance for this one. Just making sure everything's lined up nicely. I'm actually going to put a couple clips to make sure the lining and the top are together. There we go. That'll make me feel a little bit better. Now it is really thick here with both layers of soft and stable, so just kind of push it down, especially as you're getting to your presser foot. That'll help your machine go through it easier. it's nice and smooth underneath there. Okay, good to go. That should be all attached. Looks good. The stripes didn't line up. Oh well, that's okay. You won't be able to tell. All right, so the next thing is you're going to, this is all sewn on. You're going to bring the other side that is still open, and you're going to have excess fabric here. That's okay. That's what you want. And you're going to clip this on to the edge of the soft and stable and to the edge of the outer fabric. And we're going to sew this together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. Sarah's not home right now. She's at work, so I'm not sure how her hair is on my project, but all right. Good thing it's for her. All right, so we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch down this side. Again, I'm going to kind of press down on the soft and stable as I go here to help it get through the machine. Now I have a heavy duty machine, so I wouldn't really have a problem if I didn't press down, but I'm just doing it so it turns out nicer. But if you don't have as heavy duty of a machine, you'll definitely want to do this so your machine can handle it. I was thinking that was the end there. That's why backstitch. Don't do that. You don't need to. Okay, so now you should have this funky thing that's like the soft and stable on one side and the fabric sewn on the other. So like a tube. Hello. So you're going to want to turn this right side out. So we're going to pull this through and turn this guy right side out. So it should look something like this, and this is kind of like a self-bind, if you will. The smaller side, the shorter like bound side, is going to be the bottom. This is going to be the top. Okay, so we're going to cut this. I'm going to look up the instructions. I can't remember the width. I believe it's 16 inches for the larger bag, but I'm not positive. But we're going to cut this to size. So hang on with me just a second while I check that measurement. Okay, I found that measurement. It is, we need to make this piece 16 inches wide. So I've marked the center here, and the center of mine happens to be 6 3/4 because mine ended up being 13.5 inches long after all the sewing. So from that center mark, I'm going to measure 8 inches out this direction and trim, and then 8 inches out the other direction and trim to make this thing 16 inches wide. So I'm going to measure twice and cut once. So we're just cutting a little bit of the fabric that is hung over from the soft and stable off. If that makes any sense. If you guys are making this, you'll understand what I mean, because we overlap the soft and stable a little bit. And now this time you could either set this on the 16-inch mark and then trim it, or measure it. I'm going to actually try to do both, because that'll just kind of double check me that I'm actually 16 inches. And this part I'm going to go slow for, because I don't want to mess this up, because I don't want to have to make this piece over again. Okay, looks like I'm at 16. Okay, perfect. All right, so I've got my piece 16 inches. Now, what I'm going to do is, and I haven't done this yet, and I probably should have already, but I'm going to give this a little bit of a press. And then it says to stitch in the ditch, this part right here, just to give it a more finished look, because that's going to be the top. This part down here is going to be hidden kind of in the seam allowance. And then these sides, we need to stitch closed. So let's get this iron warm. Okay. And then I'll also take that mark off that I made with my pen, the halfway mark. Now I'm going to avoid the ironing these sides right here because we made those marks back a couple steps ago. If you remember, we drew some lines, and mine I drew with this like light pink, so you probably can't see it, but I can see it. So we're going to stitch on those lines, and we're going to stitch in the ditch across here, and then we're going to also stitch this seam closed. But stitch these lines first and stitch in the ditch first. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch in the ditch first. And I'm going to do a top stitch, so I'm turning my stitch length up a little bit for this. And I'm going a little slower so I can stitch in that ditch. And if you are newer to sewing and don't know what stitch in the ditch means, it just means stitching in that seam right there. Right on the seam line. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to stitch down the lines that we drew on the sides. You can mostly still see them. They erased a little bit, but they're there enough. They should hit right on the sides of your soften stable, so if you want to think of it that way, if your lines came off, it's really right on the edge of the soften stable where the fabric is empty. There. And then I'm also going to stitch this edge, raw edge closed while I'm down here, and then we'll flip it over to the other side. And this will be in the seam allowance when we put this bag together, so you won't see that. I'm going to stitch this other side. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch the seam closed. Okay, so there is our divider pocket that's going to go inside the bag. The reason why we stitched these lines is because this is going to kind of fold back like that and go in the seam, and then this part will pop out so you can stick a tablet or a computer in there. I'm going to just clean up some of these little threads, and then that will be, well, we have one more thing to do on this piece, and then we'll be done, and that will be it for the day. Okay, so the very last step of this inner divider to get this all completed is to add our piece of hook and loop tape or Velcro. If you recall, when we made the strapping, I left the other half of my strapping so I wouldn't lose this piece, which I'm really glad I did, because, yeah. Anyway, depending on which size bag you're doing, the measurements in towards the center to know where to put this piece are listed in the pattern. One is 6 and something, and this, the larger size, is 7 5/8. So I've already marked both of those, and our Velcro is going to line up right there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little 505 on this to help stick it so it doesn't move when I'm sewing it. And you're just going to put it straight on there, and you're going to stitch all the way around it. Okay. Now it does say to go down. I didn't pay attention to that. It does say in the pattern to go down, let's see, the markings begin at the bottom and going down 1.5 inches. But I did find that right under the binding, which is not 1.5 inches, was just fine for my bag, and that's what I did. So you can follow the pattern, or you can go down a little bit further if you want. And actually, if you put it up a little bit higher and you have a little bit bigger of a laptop or a tablet, you'll just get more space in there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it because Sarah's got a little bit bigger of a laptop. Or if you want to follow the pattern instructions precisely, measure down 1.25 inches. But I just put mine, or 1.5 inches, I'm sorry. I just put mine right under the binding, or the faux binding, I should say. I'm going to stitch all the way around this. Probably a couple times to hold this Velcro in place, because this will get pulled open all the time and we want it not to come out. Okay, there we go. All right, that's all attached. So when we go to put the strap on, it's going to fit together like that. And this will attach to the main part of the bag, and you'll slip your laptop like in, or your tablet in there. So, all right, that part is done. So that's it for right now. Let's do a quick review of everything that we made today. Well, we've gotten a lot done today, so that's awesome. Let's go through everything we've gotten done so far. It seems like a little, but it really isn't. After today, we're almost halfway done with the bag. This is a 12-page pattern, and we are through page 6, or gotten through most of page 6. So here we go. Let's review. So we got through all of our strapping the other day. So you should have your padded handle. That's the padded piece with the soft and stable. All your strapping, your big long strap for your bag. That's all here. Okay, and then after today, you should have your pockets. So here's our side pockets for the bag, and our mesh pocket, and our outer pocket that's going to go on the back of the bag, and our outer pocket that's going to go on the front of the bag that's going to make the outside pocket with a zipper, and then the divider piece with the Velcro. So we've actually gotten a whole lot done. I know it seems like it's taking a while. This bag is not a fast bag to make. I think I mentioned that from the very beginning. We probably are looking at least 2 more videos to finish. So I hope you'll stick with me. But I promise from this point on, especially you might have seen that from today. You get a lot accomplished pretty quickly. Like we got all those pockets done pretty quickly. And so the rest is just building on what we've already done. And then we get to start assembling this, which is the fun part, because you finally get to see your work, showing something for your work. Although I hope today, after making some of these pockets, that you can start to see a bag coming together. So it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of work, but it'll be worth it in the end, I promise. All right, well, keep stitching, stay safe, and don't forget the UFO challenge, the 365 challenge. Check out my Facebook group where all those things are going on. Post pictures of your bag, of those things, your UFOs, the 365 challenge if you decided to join me in that. I love to see them. I love seeing the updates, and a bunch of you have already posted UFOs that you finished, which I'm going, oh, I need to get some UFOs going. But I really want to finish this bag first, and then I'll get to UFOs. Plus, I've got some sew-alongs coming up in February, solar flare that I need to be ready for, and a sew-along with my good friend Russ of Quilt Meets World. So lots of stuff going on. Make sure you also check out his channel. I'll link it down below, as well as I'll link the Facebook group and all the things I talked about today, the 365 challenge, and the link for the pattern for this bag. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye.